Hello, movie and entertainment fans, and welcome back to the Calvin Cam Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all sorts of things in the film, television, and video game world. I'm Calvin, and today we have another episode review and breakdown of HBO's The Last of Us. So buckle up, and we're going to get into episode 8, When We Are in Need. Episode 8, We Are in Need, is an amazing episode. This is probably going to be one of the more controversial episodes that I review because I kind of wish I didn't expect so much out of it. Not to say anything bad about the episode. The episode was great. I enjoyed it very, very much so, and I thought all of the acting performances were amazing. As usual, this series is knocking it out of the park time and time again. Every episode, we're almost at the end of the entire season. We have one episode left coming out next weekend, and that's going to be it. Then what are we going to do until season 2? We've gotten episodes week after week that have all, in my personal opinion, been some of the strongest episodes in television history. This has easily become one of my favorite shows of all time, and let's hope that they seal the deal on the last episode. But episode 8, When We Are in Need, is great. I expected so much out of this episode as somebody who has played the game before, because the game goes hard during this part, and the episode doesn't go as hard, where in terms of action, yes, there was a lot in this episode that was pulled directly out of the game. There's just a few minor changes that I felt needed to be in the show that were in the game. And I don't feel like this episode, I feel like this, see, this is what I mean. Like this episode, it's so hard for me to talk about this episode because it's great. In the game, you have Ellie off taking care of Joel. She's hunting. It's been weeks. Joel's been injured. Like Joel has been sitting down in that basement for quite a while trying to recover. Ellie's been kind of living off the land, showing that she's been hunting. I like in the show that it showed the rabbit. We got the rabbit scene. That was a cool little nod at the game. We got the whole introduction of David and his group of borderline cannibals. Yes, they are eating people, but not all of them know it. So I think that the little details like that are really interesting and really nice to expand upon in the show versus the game. However, in this part, after Ellie gets captured by David, for one, her and David get stuck together in the shed just like they did in the show, as David's right-hand man, who's played by Troy Baker, which is amazing. He is the voice of Joel in the video game, so I thought his performance in the show was hands down amazing. I forget the character's name is escaping me. I believe it's James. I'm pretty sure it's James. He sends James off to go get the penicillin for Ellie to help Joel out. And during this time, this is when you discover that Ellie and Joel are the same people that David and his group have been looking for, because Joel murdered those people back at the Colorado College, and they were a part of David's group. So now you have this whole intense moment with David and Ellie in the shed. In the game, they fend off infected together. You know, they're stuck in a shitty situation. They have to work together. It kind of builds their relationship, quote unquote, up a little bit as far as like the trust. But then, you know, ultimately David, you know, throws Ellie in a cell and, you know, is like, you got to join me. You join me or you're going to become lunch, basically. So in the game, during this part, Joel wakes up and he then is basically in a blizzard almost, and he's tracking down Ellie. He has no idea where she's at. I believe she's been captured for at least a day or two, but he's making his way through the town, through the city, and he's trying to find her. So he is just taking all of these people out. You get a lot of choke out scenes, a lot of, using your whole entire arsenal in the game to track down Ellie because he is just so worried about where she could possibly be. And I feel like we got some of that. Some of the dialogue in this episode that was ripped out was the interrogation scene with the knife in the knee of the bad guy, and Joel talking to him about pointing on the map, and it better be the same place where your friend says it is, and he kills him anyway. And then his friend's like, what do you killed him? He's like, how do you know he was telling the truth? He's like, oh, he wasn't lying. And then he kills that guy because Joel is a hardcore mother and he will get shit done. And Pedro Pascal did a great job. Once again, have to applaud him for his performance. But who really, really stood out in this episode was, of course, Bella Ramsey. This was her best performance in the show so far. I believe, and especially between the final climactic moments between her and David. So David, ultimately dies at her hand, and it is just brutal. But this part of the game was also very, very much more dramatic. It was a boss fight almost. David's just hunting you down while you're in the diner or whatever restaurant that is, and you're just sneaking around. And I like that they kind of show elements of the game, and obviously that it, this all being said, it is an adaptation. It's not going to be the same. I get that they're trying to tell a story, but I feel like it could have been a lot more fierce. I feel like they're missing out on a moment to be a little bit more brutal. See, it's so hard for me to talk about this because it was brutal. I'm just like, it could have been so much better. I do give this episode a 9 out of 10, ultimately, at the end of it. It had a lot more as far as just what I wanted from it. Now, some things that I really, really enjoy, the background of David and his group. They've been travelers. They've traveled from place to place. Obviously, they haven't been able to settle anywhere. So they finally end up settling in. I don't know why a snowy town that doesn't seem to have the seasons change very often, because they're kind of like stuck basically to the point where they're not going to uproot and move people to a better location, which I feel like they easily could with the number of people that they have. Instead, they kind of just stick it out and basically result to cannibalism. David, the actor who played David, Scott Shepherd, he was menacing. It was great. He plays a preacher who used to be a teacher, and he did it because it rhymes, like Ellie said. And he was just very, very, very menacing. His acting was really, really great, especially the parts between him and Ellie while she's trapped in the cell. You're just kind of like learning a little bit more about this character, because at first you start kind of like empathizing with him. You start liking him. You're like, this guy can't be that bad. And then it just like slowly just turns to this like, is not so good, with the cell. And then eventually at the conflict of the episode where Ellie is just hacking him up to bits, he pins her down, and he basically is just like, yeah, this is how I like it. I like it when they squirm. And like, he's straight up gonna take advantage of her right there. Like, it's insane. They did such a good job at like making his character fit in this world of fucked up people. So I'm really happy with the overall telling of this episode. I just was like, all right, you play as Joel, you're on the hunt, man. Your daughter's been taken, and I loved every single enemy that you kill in the game. You are just like, yeah, you fucking deserve it, bro. Give me my daughter back. Where is she? And I like that kind of like mindset, the revenge plot mindset where it's just like one track mind. Morally, it's probably not great. We've seen this in the earlier episodes with like Kathleen taking revenge for what happened to her brother Michael on, pretty much everyone, just so she could find Henry and Sam. Own personal goals taking priority over everything. And who's to say who wouldn't? If anything were to happen to my children, I would absolutely go ape shit. That being said, like, I loved this episode. 9 out of 10 for sure. We are approaching the final episode, though. Like I've said before, I am so excited for it. So excited to see how this wraps up. I'm very, very much looking forward to seeing if a few things from the game will show up in this show. And I'm also wondering what the setup will be for the next season of The Last of Us, because it did get renewed for a second season. And Neil Druckmann also said that the story that needs to be told would be 2 seasons long. So potentially we're getting 2 more seasons, and The Last of Us Part 2 will be 2 seasons long, which is great. But and I am looking forward to see how HBO adapts that game, because that is gotta be the most controversial game that I have ever played in my life. Fuck Abby. I'm on that team. So we will see how that plays out. I'm excited. I can only hope that the season finale will be the best, because if it is indeed a 9 to a 10 out of 10 episode, then this is easily a solid series in television. And that is so incredible to see, because it is, in fact, a video game adaptation, which have a very, very, very bad track record. So this could be one of the best things to happen to not only the video game world, but that kind of like bridge that we have been trying to build since, I don't know, Doom in the 2000s. So hopefully it's great. And that's going to conclude today's episode. It was a very straightforward episode, so I don't need to talk about it all that much. See you next time. Thank you. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the Calvin Cam podcast. I'm so happy that you listened to the episode. Hope you liked it. You can follow me on all audio streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. And you can also hop over to YouTube and hit that subscribe and like button. Put those notifications on. Get, notified when we drop new episodes, which we're going to do even more so here. And I also want to tell you, we have started a Patreon, so go there to support the channel tremendously. We have one tier, it's a $3 tier. Please go there, and we will continue to grow and be bigger and better than we can even imagine. So thank you very much for all of your support, and we'll catch you soon.